They just had their primary elections, Virginia. This is how democracy works, right? So Virginia, they had their election. This is the primary. This is the Democrat Party, June 8th, 2021. So today's Thursday, it'd be 2 days ago, right? So June 8th, 2021, the primary, Democrat Party. And guess who won? Guess who won the primary in Virginia? There was a whole slate of candidates running for governor, and the Democrats, they picked Bashir Assad. Yep, Bashir Assad got 95.2% of the vote, 76% turnout rate, 10 to 13 million voters. Bashir Assad, I don't know how the fuck he won, but he won by 95%. Bashir Assad's been in power for 50 years. He's going to be in power for another 50 years. His son, his grandson, this is a royal family. So the Assads are going to run Virginia until the year 2100. 2100. The Assads are going to still be running Syria in 2100. Poor Syria. Poor Syria. But no. Bashir Assad did not win Virginia's governor's election. It was Terry McAuliffe. Terry McAuliffe actually won Virginia's governor's election. At least that's what they're saying. They're going to go ahead and give it to him. He won with 62%, which is unbelievable, which is out of 10% of the electorate. So this is 500,000 people. This is a 10% turnout rate. How many people voted Terry McAuliffe become, the next governor of Virginia? Just 10% of the Democrats. Just 10% of half the political parties. So just 10%, and then out of that 10%, 62% voted for Terry McAuliffe. Well, frankly, Terry McAuliffe isn't that goddamn popular. And the opposition, maybe they were weak, maybe there's institutional problems, I don't know what the fuck happened, but this was not a competitive election. Virginia's democracy is broken. It's not instant runoff voting, it's not ranked choice voting, it's not preferential voting, it's not public finance elections, it's not written ballots, it's not as good as Colorado. The elections in Virginia is not as good as Colorado, it's not as good as Peru. There's no referendum initiative or recall institutionalized into the Constitution. Virginia's democracy is broken. This is a sham election. 62%, not a competitive race. 10% means most of the fucking people didn't even vote. 90% of the people of Virginia said, fuck your democratic republic. Fuck your consent to the governed. We're not even going to participate by putting a check mark next to a person's name, let alone following bills and, going and protesting and demonstrating, starting caucuses. Virginia's turnout rate was 10%. What the fuck is this shit, Virginia? This is shit. This is a sham democracy. This is a shit election. 10% turnout rate, 10 fucking percent. The United Nations needs to invade Virginia right away. Virginia does not have democracy. We need to get Virginia some American-style democracy. United Nations, invade Virginia. They don't have a true blue legit democracy. Somebody's got to care about this severe drought of democracy in America. There's three main problems that I see with this election with Terry McAuliffe. The primary in Virginia, three main problems. Number one, only 500,000 voters. There's, 4 to 5 million voters that could vote. Only 500,000 voters showed up. So even though we can laugh at Bashir Assad, right, he got, 10 to 13 million people to vote his way. So that's what, he was cheating or whatever, but he got 10 at least to go out and put a fucking check mark next to the name. They couldn't even do that with the Democrats in Virginia. Only 500,000. They couldn't even break the 1 million mark. And then 62%, that's not competitive. Diverger's law broke down. Something is wrong. Something is broken with Virginia's democracy. And then 10% of the turnout rate. I don't know how anybody with a straight face could say that 10% represents of, by, and for the people. Democracy. If you had instant runoff voting, then you would have 50%. You're guaranteed that 50% of the people that voted, plus one, voted for your guy. You can't even say it with this motherfucker. You're guaranteed a majority victor. You're guaranteed a majority victor. And it's, deep and far and wide support. But instead of having instant runoff voting, instead of having people, enthusiastically going out to the polls and voting for their, favorite candidates, instead of having, some populists jump into the fray and say, hey, they're going to turn the state of Virginia around, instead we get 10% turnout rate. Now, this is just actually an estimation. In Fairfax County, the in-person turnout rate was under 5%. In Alexandria, it was under 12%. In Prince William County, it was 3.75%. 3.75%. So what's that? 5 people voted in Prince William County, 3.75%. How can you say you're a democracy? 9% of Arlington County. 9% of Arlington County turned out. 9%. And then somebody said Halifax County would be around 10%. So 10%, 4%, 12%, 4%, that's about 10%, right? 10%, fucking 10% turnout rate? How embarrassing. How embarrassing. They'll go on with this sham election pretending it doesn't matter if one motherfucker votes, right? If one person votes, well then shit, that's the majority. 10% is terrible. You know what 10% says? That says that the majority of Virginians, 90% of the Democrats, who, are generally the ones you would think that would give a shit about, democracy. It's in their name. But 90% of Democrats don't participate in democracy. They don't even fucking vote. They don't even do the least amount that they could do in this democratic republic. 90% said, fuck you, Virginia. Fuck this experiment. Fuck this democratic republic. Let's get King George back in here. We don't want to make decisions. Jesus Christ, it's too hard. Going out, put a check mark next to somebody's fucking name, that's too goddamn hard for Virginians. Virginians are steadfast. 90% of Virginians says, fuck your elections, fuck democracy, fuck a republic. We don't give a fuck about nobody. Bunch of, goddamn greedy, selfish, fucking low-life pieces of shit. Only give a fuck about themselves. Can't think about the community. Can't take one day out. Can't even be bothered to participate in their democratic republic for just one day. Do they want a government of, by, and for the people? 90% of Virginia says, fuck, no they don't. Absolutely not. Fuck a democracy. 90% of the Virginian Democrats says, fuck a democracy. And then 500,000 voters, right? 500,000 voters. Serious, we could kind of compare and contrast. They said 10 to 13 million voters. And they, brag about a 76% turnout rate. And then Assad got 95.2% of the vote. But 500,000 voters, it should have been 4 to 5 million voters. How many? It's about 5 million is the electorate. That's how many total there is, but you can't get them all out. But let's do Peru. Peru is kicking ass at taking names. Peru's turnout rate, they just had a presidential election, 82%. 82%, 25 million total electorate. That means over 20 million people in Peru voted in their election. In Syria, over 10 million voted in their fucking, sham election. But 10 million of them voted. Over 20 million Peruvians voted. How many Virginians voted? Not even 500,000. Not even 500,000. It should have been 4 to 5 million. If we're even going to get close to 50% plus 1. 62% of 10%. 62% of 10%, that's just 6%. So Terry McAuliffe is going to become the governor just because of 6%? That's not democracy. That's tyranny of the 6%. So Peru had an 82% turnout rate. If Virginia had the same turnout rate as Peru, 5 million votes, 80%, that's 4.1 million voters. Not a measly 500,000, but 4 million. That's how many Democrats should have been voting if the Democrat, primary in Virginia was as strong as the election in Peru, which it is not. It's more of a side kind of election. Because it's bullshit. 500,000, that's fucking despicable. 10%, that's not even close to being a democracy. And then, last but not least, 62%. And you might say, well, why do you got a problem with 62%? If you're going to cheat in America when it comes to these voting, look at the American history, okay? Abraham Lincoln, he ran against George McClellan during the Civil War, 55% to 44%. That's what Abraham Lincoln got during the war, a civil war. George McClellan gave Abraham Lincoln a run for his money, 1864. 55% to 45%. Like 2.2 million versus 1.8 million, some shit like that. So even during the Civil War, the elections were competitive. If you look at the biggest landslide in American history, it's 61% to 38%. FDR versus Alf Landon, 1936. So 61% is the biggest landslide in American history, Diverger's Law. If it's a competitive race, then you're going to only get 61 to 38. If you get, if it's more wider than 61 to 38, you got some problems. You got some severe problems. Terry McAuliffe won with 62%. That's more than 61%. It's close. Yeah, I know. Now, you could say he had a weak opposition, and his opposition was weak. Terry McAuliffe, he looks all like a shiny penny, right? He was, whatever governor. You got a Republican governor in there now, so I guess they're feeling nostalgic, going to give Terry McAuliffe a second chance. But this is not a competitive race. This is going to be bad for Terry McAuliffe because he's not going to be vetted, right? He's not going to be vetted. He didn't have an actual, primary, an actual election that he needed to win. But he had no opposition, and maybe he'll have some opposition with the Republicans in November. Maybe this Glenn Youngkin is going to be, the bee's knees of whatever. Glenn Youngkin is the, Republican, and they're term limited, so the, current Republican has to step down. But from what I hear, the Democrat primary is the governor's election in Virginia. The Republicans haven't won a statewide race in Virginia in over a decade. So they're not just losing the governor's races, they're losing the lieutenant governor and the attorney general. They're losing all these races. So McAuliffe, after he wins the Democratic primary, he's basically just a perfunctory shoo-in, right? This Glenn Youngkin, does he even stand a fucking chance? Now, I looked at Terry McAuliffe's, 2014 election, and it was close. He barely fucking won the thing. So it could turn out to be a competitive race, past the primary. But the primary is not a fair election. This is a sham election, sham democracy. Virginia, you don't have a real democracy at all. 90% of the people of Virginia and the Democrat Party says, fuck this democracy. How can you say you got a democracy when 90% are saying, fuck your democracy? So, Glenn Youngkin, is this going to turn out the way Terry McAuliffe won it, 62% of 10%? So if I'm not going to put up with Assad's anti-democracy bullshit, I'm not going to put up with Virginia's anti-democracy bullshit. What, Assad, you won with 95%? Bullshit. What, McAuliffe, you won with 62%? Bullshit. Maybe because the turnout rate was so goddamn low, perhaps, that's why, but he's not that fucking popular. He's not the greatest. He's not Martin Luther King. But he's not. What the fuck? Just flashbacks is, I know how Virginia's democracy is because I used to live in Kentucky. Colorado has so much democracy. There's so much freedom here. It's incredible. So when it comes to Virginia, do you have, referendums? They only got like few referendums here and there. They get 2 questions every 2 years. I've been asked to decide 10 questions every year I've been here for the last, 4 or 5 years. Every year, 10 questions. How come the government or the people of Virginia don't have any initiatives or any referendums? Do you not want to put questions to the people of Virginia? Are the people of Virginia that stupid? You don't want the dog shit poor, the stupid fucking rabble to, figure out the major issues of the day? It's just easier to elect a bunch of tyrants and just be done with the whole goddamn thing? Virginians need more referendums, more initiatives. They need recall institutionalized in their constitution. The plutocrats, the rich and the powerful, the oligarchy, of course they want to run everything. Of course keep it all the same. But look at American history. The biggest landslide in U.S. history is FDR versus Alf Landon. And if I'm wrong about these things, please tell me, because that's how we learn. Abraham Lincoln got 55%. George B. McClellan got 45%. I believe the biggest landslide was 61% to 38%. FDR versus Alf Landon. Maybe the first ones when it was just Electoral College, but those are anomalies. So no, FDR ran against Alf. Alf lost against FDR in 1936, but FDR only got 61%. So no, Terry McAuliffe, you're not a fucking FDR. You're not more popular than FDR. I don't believe you. I don't believe it. So Lieutenant Governor, let's see, the other races, 39% to 29%. The Lieutenant Governor, you had the progressive Lieutenant Governor lost. So there you go. That should give you an indication the progressives don't have a chance, right? Why are the progressives getting their asses kicked? I want to say that the neoliberal, what they picked out the incumbent, I'm not for sure. Hala, let's see, H-A-L-A, Hala Ayala. Okay, Hala Ayala is going to beat Sam Razul. So Sam Razul is the progressive, but Hala Ayala beat Sam Razul 39% to 25%. That's a closer race. That's a race, I believe. 39% to 25%, that's a 14-point difference. That I believe. But 62%, and what was the closest one? 62% versus Jennifer Foy's 20%. So Terry McAuliffe had 62%. Jennifer Carol Foy, the number 2 person, was 20%. Then you had Jennifer McClellan with 12%. Then you had Fairfax with 4%. And then a radical ginger with 3%. Lee Carter said all cops are bastards. So this is the opposition. The number 1 opposition got 20%. Terry McAuliffe beat the shit out of all 4 of these candidates, which is almost unheard of. They were kind of weak candidates, but Jesus Christ, so let's see, the news, 39%, 25%. Looked at the state of Virginia. The right side of Virginia wanted that Hala Ayala, but the left side of the state wanted Sam Razul. So that's kind of crazy. The left rural part of the state are more progressive, and the right part of the, more urban and the more your fucking yuppies. The yuppies wanted to go neoliberal. And then McAuliffe, if you look at his map, it looks like the whole goddamn state voted for him. So let's see here. The Hala Ayala was endorsed by the Republican governor, Ralph Northam. So there you go. A Democrat endorsed by the Republican governor got elected, not the progressive when it comes to the lieutenant governor. That's terrible. That's awful. That's a broken democracy. Again, Virginia, you got a sham election, broken democracy. Your democracy is not working. We need the United Nations to invade Virginia right away. She's going to face Republican Winsome Sears in November, and she might be the first woman in the lieutenant governor's chair. Okay, so Hala Ayala. She, the Attorney General in the statewide race, Mark Herring, beat Gerald Jones. Mark Herring got 57% to Gerald Jones' 43%. Again, that's more competitive. Still a blowout, right? 57 to 43%, but not 62% to 20%. That's Assad. Those are Assad kind of numbers. That's Saddam Hussein kind of numbers. Saddam Hussein has that much fucking support. Belarus and Cameroon, yeah. Paul Biya. I'm sure Paul Biya is the bee's knees of fucking Africa. Who's that Belarus? Lukashenko. I'm sure that Lukashenko is just the greatest goddamn fucking... Southeast Virginia voted for Gerald Jones, but Northern Virginia and Western Virginia voted for Mark Herring. So there you go. There you go. That's, the update for goddamn Virginia. So, yeah, Bashir Assad, that's clearly not a democracy. He's at war and has to deal with the dirty wars and has to deal with a lot of fucking shit. But I'm not about to adopt Assad's model of democracy for, any of my states, any organization. Nobody should adopt Assad's model of democracy. That's for goddamn sure. Now, democracy means rule by the people, which means you got to have a mandate of the people as the consent of the governed, which is 50% plus 1. That has to be, most of the people have to consent to the government. Most of the people in Virginia stayed the fuck home. Most of the people in Virginia are not consenting to the government. If anything, they're very much rejecting, consenting to the government. 90% of the people are firmly against elections, voting, democracy. Only the majority of the 10%, and the majority of the 10% is what, 6%? 6% of the fucking people are picking their government? Jesus Christ, 10%. This is a sham election, an illegitimate democracy. 6% is not the consent of the governed. That's not 50% plus 1. That's not a democratic mandate. We need to have democracy in the United States because we use that democracy bullshit to invade nations all over the globe, and our democracy here at home sucks. My God, they about stole the damn election, and there wasn't even evidence of widespread voter fraud. The Fuhrer just lied, and enough people believed him. 6%, that's not good enough. Virginia. That's awful. You have a sham election. You have a bullshit democracy. 6%? That's not 50% plus 1. Instant runoff voting guarantees a majority victor. But doing shit like Virginia, well, 6% can determine, for the rest of the whole goddamn state where that state goes. Frankly, I believe that if 50% plus 1 of the people did not vote in your election, if over 50% of the electorate, of the registered voters, then you have to redo. You have to redo that election. That means the majority, the person who gets elected, cannot say that they represent the majority of the people in Virginia, because the majority of the people in Virginia didn't even fucking vote. So you can't say you're democratically elected. You're the democratic representative of the entire state. You're only representative of 6%. That's tyranny of the 6%. Right? So there you go. Virginia has a sham democracy, just like Syria has a sham democracy. Syria, Virginia, take a look at Colorado. Take a look at Peru. Peru and Colorado, they are kicking ass and taking names when it comes to democracies. Okay? They're at least better than this bullshit right here. 10%, no Terry McAuliffe, you didn't fucking win. That's a sham election. It's illegitimate, and it's unbearable that so many motherfuckers, nobody says shit about this. Nobody even points it out. We just go along with, oh, well, who gives a shit? Who gives a fuck? It's not good enough. So, yeah, we need to do better. You want to live in a democratic republic? You want to talk about America being free? Okay, tell me what you talked about in your caucus. Tell me what you talked about in your Soviet. Are you doing anything political whatsoever? Because I'll tell you this, I'm tired of fighting for motherfuckers that wouldn't fight for me in a million years. I'll fight for you if you fight for me.